Hi, everybody, and welcome to our very first parent transition workshop. This is one of 3 different opportunities that you'll get throughout the year to meet with us and hear from different team members who are part of the transition process. My name's Christy Power, and I'm the Assistant Principal of Student Wellbeing and the Assistant Principal of Year 7, and part of my role is the responsibility of the transition process from Year 6 to 7. We've got 2 other members here who I'll introduce in a moment, but tonight's webinar is really in response to a parent survey. We surveyed our parents earlier on in the year. You may or may not have had an opportunity to participate in that through our primary schools. And we decided to run this first workshop online because over half of our parents who responded said that that would work better for them initially. So we listened, and here we are. Please note that any of the other workshops that we're going to be running throughout the year, so there'll be one in early term 4, and then we have our big parent caregiver information night. Those will all be face-to-face at Golden Grove throughout term 4. So parents and caregivers have had a big say in tonight's agenda. So we hope that helps ease your mind and allows you to ask some questions. We won't answer too many nitty-gritty questions, like around stationery and fees, but we will be talking about some of the more details of the programs and system setup. Can everybody hear me? Can you give me a raise your hand or a thumbs up or something if you can hear? Good, awesome, great. So we're going to be recording this tonight so that some of our parents who weren't able to make it can do so. We've got our chat open, so any questions that you might have throughout the presentation, please put them in the chat. We've definitely got enough time at the end of the night to answer some of those questions. If you're having problems with your audio, just make sure that you have your speakers on the right setting so that you can hear. Otherwise, if it all gets a bit too much and you're not able to hear, then please know that we're recording it and you can come back and listen to this. So first up tonight, I'd like to introduce you to Kirsty Uhealy. Kirsty, can you give us a wave? Kirsty is our Assistant Principal of Middle School. Kirsty is a long-standing staff member here at Golden Grove whose role involves teaching and learning and leading our middle school. Tonight, Kirsty is going to be talking to everybody about our middle school philosophy and how this really helps students to feel more connected. She'll also be talking about workload and homework expectations, which is a big concern for both families and students. And then I'm going to be talking to you a little bit about the transition program and some of the systems that we have in place to support students to feel safe. And Kirsty Faulkner, who is our sub-school leader. So she's our Year 7 sub-school leader. So we call them sub-schools here because they're large cohorts of young people. And Kirsty helps support the sub-school by connecting with young people. She's a person that they can come to if they've got a big problem. She's often somebody who parents come to when they've got big problems, and runs our sub-school essentially, and looks after and manages the team of teachers who are involved with all of our young people in our year level. Kirsty Faulkner is going to cover some of the other different programs and systems that we have in place to support students to feel safe and address bullying or harassment. So, as I said, at the end of the presentation, we'll have some time for questions. Before we go any further, though, one thing that we always do at Golden Grove is an acknowledgement of country. And I'm going to play you a video. Was made by some of our students. It's a beautiful video shot down at the Wimval Dam that is going to acknowledge the country that we meet on tonight. We're really lucky to have 12 beautiful Year 6 First Nation students joining us next year, and they'll make over 70 First Nation students here at Golden Grove next year. So we've got the biggest cohort that we've ever had, and we're very lucky to have them, and with the team that around them that support them. So I'm going to hand you over to Kirsty Uhealy now to talk a little bit about our middle school philosophy and our homework and workload expectations.
Thank you, Christy. Hello, everybody. I hope you're having a nice evening and getting out of the cold and the wintry day that was today. So I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about our philosophy here at Golden Grove, and then I'll weave in why we have our structures the way that we do. So I want to start with letting you know that at Golden Grove, we really do prioritise building strong relationships and a sense of belonging first. We know that when young people feel safe and connected, they feel valued, they're far more likely to engage, take risks in their learning and thrive academically. So that is at the forefront of all that we do. So to do this, we place students into a grove. That is what you might know as a home group or a homeroom from your primary schools. We aim to keep those groves to relatively small numbers. So we're talking about 25 or less, and students will do all of their core learning in their grove, so with the same group of teachers. And we'll talk a little bit more about what that means later. So students remain with their grove every year, all the way through to year 12. So that means that they build really strong and lasting relationships with their peers. We have specialist year 7 and 8 grove teachers. And then from year 9, their grove teacher follows them all the way through until they graduate. So this consistency provides a really safe and familiar base. It helps students to feel known, supported, connected. So over time, it allows teachers to understand each of their learners in their classrooms quite deeply, their strengths, their challenges, their goals, so we can provide the right support and the right stretch. So each grove also forms what we call a village. So as you can see in the little diagram there, 3 groves connect together to create a village, and there's a maximum of 3. So it gives each village a really bonding opportunities. So our year 7 culture building events, our year 7 camp are all done within those villages. So these groves are located next door to each other, so that provides that sense of community. And in year 9, to support students transitioning from middle school to senior school, students then move to do their core subjects, which they do at year 7 and 8 as their grove, and we mix the students up amongst their village. So that there's sort of plans in place to support them all the way throughout that whole middle school journey. So I mentioned just before about core learning. So students have 4 core subjects that they do at Golden Grove. We have Global Perspectives, which is a combined English and humanities course. So we are extremely lucky to do that here at Golden Grove. There aren't very many schools that have that integrated approach, but it's something that we 100% believe in, because life isn't segregated into little boxes. So the more connections that we can build for us, the better. We also have maths, we have science, and we have our healthy lifestyles class. So healthy lifestyles is what you guys would know as, I guess, PE. It's our version of PE. So I'll be talking more about the curriculum offerings at one of our later sessions in term 4. But please feel free to ask any questions about this at the end if there's anything that you would like more information on tonight. I did just want to point out that as part of our middle school model, the year 7 groves will only have a maximum of 3 core teachers. So for those 5 subjects, they will only have 3 core teachers, and one of those teachers will be their grove teacher as well. So that's one of the ways that we ensure that transition between primary school and high school, having that smaller number of teachers who really know your child well. So it also reduces the transitions each day between classrooms. We're hoping that it makes it a little bit less overwhelming. Like I said before, it allows teachers to get to know each of our learners both academically and personally. That's really important to us here, and to build those really strong supportive relationships. With fewer teachers, communication we find is clearer, is more consistent. It helps students and you guys at home feel secure and supported, and better able to focus on their learning. So it creates opportunities for teachers to connect learning across subjects, and it gives students a more sort of joined up and engaging experience. One of the biggest concerns that came out to us from our families in the survey that we did was around homework. So I did want to talk to you a little bit briefly about that. Naturally, as students move into high school, their workload will increase slightly. They will have more subjects and they will have more teachers. However, I do want to reassure you that ample class time is provided to students to complete most of their work in class. So while some teachers might expect students to work on assignments outside of class time, or maybe catch up on some work that they didn't quite finish within the classroom, this is very much managed in a controlled and supportive way, with guidance provided to help students build the skills that they need to balance their learning and their well-being. I know there's quite often a bit of a fear that moving into high school, my child's going to have, hours worth of homework. I want to reassure you that that isn't the case. And sometimes we get questions about, my child's not bringing home any homework. Is that the case? It means that they're working really productively and well in class. So that's exciting. The last thing that I wanted to talk to you about is our learning spaces. So for those of you that have been on a tour, you would have seen our state-of-the-art middle school building. All of our Year 7s are located together on the top floor, and we do that very deliberately to create a really close community and help the transition to high school be less overwhelming. We know that we're a big school, but our one space is all on the top floor of the middle school building to support our Year 7s as they come in. And I can guarantee you students very quickly get to know the space, they feel secure, and they build really strong connections with their peers because we're all up here in it together. Our classrooms are actually quite unique for a high school. They are very specifically designed around the notion of being flexible. So we have furniture such as whiteboard tabletops. So students can actually, like in the middle of a maths lesson, they can be doing some working out on their tabletop and erase it afterwards. We have rover chairs that allow students to work in ways that best suit their learning style. We are also very fortunate that we have multiple breakout rooms. They provide quiet spaces for our neurodivergent students who might need a little bit of a break from the noise or the crowds. And they also offer opportunities for small group collaboration. So we utilise those breakout spaces all the time. So while majority of the learning happens in their own classroom, so for all of those core subjects, they're up here, they own their space. We also have access to specialist areas, including our science labs, our technology workshops, our kitchens, our art spaces, and that exposes them to that sort of wide range of experiences and begins to prepare them for when they move out of the middle school building and prepare them for that pathway to their senior school. So that is actually it from me for now. I genuinely look forward to meeting a lot of you in person very, very soon, and meeting your young people as we delve deeper into transition.
Thanks so much, Kirsty. I'm going to take over now and talk a little bit about our transition program and our model of support. One of the concerns that comes up frequently when we survey our parents about coming to high school is around safety, violence, bullying, and the influence of older students. And as parents, we all understand that your primary concern during this transition period is your young person's well-being and safety throughout their schooling, and that's ours too. We want every child to achieve their version of success, and we want them to do that in a safe, supported, and cared for manner. Our transition program is really designed to help us to achieve this. We're focusing on familiarising them with our site, our expectations, making connections with peers, student leaders, and staff, addressing some of their concerns before they come, explicitly teaching, then reteaching, and then sometimes reteaching again, some of those basic skills that can really help them feel confident and safe at high school. This program starts at the beginning of the year, and it starts with me meeting with our main feeder primary schools and getting them to share about what their experience is of the transition program, what they think we could work on for this year, how they think kids have transitioned into our school, whether they've heard anything from the kids about their experience. Obviously, we work really closely with our parents throughout this process, asking them what information they need and how we can support families to have a really smooth transition. But we're also asking our kids what they want to know. So whenever we go out to visit them or they come to us, we're asking them what questions they have and also what are some of the things that they really want to hear about. And that's how we design our program each year. And we make little adjustments each year to what we're doing. We begin by visiting our major feeder primary schools. That's the first time. So once we've got our list of students who are coming to us, we start those visits where we're addressing student questions. We're introducing them to a high school timetable and discussing some of the exciting opportunities that comes along with being in a big high school like ours. And we're helping them to really start to consider what elective subjects they might like to do once they're here. This proactive approach is really about building familiarity, which allows us to meet them in their comfort zone, in their schools, in their space, and starts getting them excited about what are some of the great things about high school. And there are so many great things about high school. And our peer leaders really help us to promote that and to try and quieten some of those nerves that they might be feeling. There's lots of research that highlights the importance of peer mentoring to help Year 6 students to foster that sense of belonging. And we have a fantastic and long-running peer support program. It involves students that we have very carefully selected who started their training in the year prior to the transition to high school. So we've got a bunch of Year 9s at the moment who are working really closely with a teacher. It's a subject here at our school. And they are being taught some of the skills that they might need to lead, support, and mentor these incoming Year 7s. Our peer leaders help to build those connections when young people are here with us. So we often have students coming from smaller primary schools or maybe coming completely on their own. And part of a peer leader's role is to be able to introduce them to other people, help staff identify maybe when a young person is struggling. As we're starting to get to know them, we can identify that a lot easier. But sometimes when we're up the front teaching and there's a class of 25 kids here in front of us and we don't really know them and we've never really met them, or this is the first time we're meeting them, we miss some of those little signs that often our peer leaders will pick up on. And they'll often come and tell a staff member that, oh, that young person feels a little left out. And the teachers can then help to build connections as well. They're really great at sharing their own experiences. They have the most recent experience out of everybody. So it's really great to have them to be able to share some of the really positive experiences that they've had. They listen without judgment and they're ready to support when issues arise with maybe running some restorative circles or restorative conversations when there's been maybe a fracturing in friendships between young people. And we train them specifically in that model. Kirsty's going to talk a little bit more about restorative practices, so I won't talk any more about that. These young people are extremely passionate about providing our Year 7s with their own insight, and they're best placed to empathise through the whole transition experience because they've just done it. Once we've done our visits out to primary schools with our peer leaders, we then invite them in. So we're about to start that process now in term 3. All of our primary schools come to visit. Our big feeders will come together and they'll come as a big group. So one big school will come together, another big school will come together, and then we hold another day separately for some of our smaller feeder primary schools, or for some of those students who are coming completely on their own. So there's an opportunity for them to get the same information as those who might be coming from Greenwith, Golden Grove, Windvale or Keithcott Farm, because those 4 schools are our biggest feeder primaries. So they visit us, and during those visits, we're going to cover some key aspects. We're going to, again, we've already taught them this. We've already taught them when we go to visit them about how to read a timetable, but we're going to go back and reteach that. We're going to let them look at a school map and help them to navigate their way around the school. So they're going to use their timetable and their map to find their own way. We're going to get them to make a little video about themselves that introduces themselves, talks about how they like to learn best, what their interests are. Those videos are so powerful because our teachers have an opportunity during our first professional learning community time to actually sit down and watch the videos of the young people that they're teaching. So it's an opportunity for them to get to know kids before they're actually there in front of them and know little things about them, put a face to the names, hear kids say their own names, sometimes really important. And our teachers love them. They will also have an opportunity to experience some elective subjects. So they're going to have a bit of a taste when they come to visit us of drama, of art, of music. And they're also going to have an opportunity to have a taste of our visible learning subjects, because those subjects are very unique to Golden Grove. Often students don't know much about them at all. And so we want to give them the most exposure that we can before they are actually having to make their choice about what subjects they might be interested in. So it's about having them make informed choices when they're choosing their elective subjects. They're also going to do some activities with our peer leaders and our school mental health practitioner and wellbeing leaders around coping with change. What are some of the things that I can do for myself to help myself cope with change, and who are all the people who can help me cope with this big transition? So identifying who are the people around me that might be able to support me here at Golden Grove and in my key circle of people. So all of this, we hope, really helps to ease some of those worries. We know that the more times we expose them to our environment and to a high school experience, the better they're going to feel and the more confident and comfortable they're going to feel. Then in term 4, obviously, we have our 2 big days of transition. And this is actually, I think, the biggest support for students. This year, the small change that we've made to our program is, and this is based on student feedback, is to give them the most amount of time that we can to expose them to the most amount of subjects that we can. So we changed the timetable a little bit, and what we've done in the last couple of years to make sure that kids are getting a try of as many lessons as we can in the time that we've got them over those 2 days. And they're also able to meet lots of different staff then. This is, as I said, based on feedback, and it's about aiming to make sure that those 2 days are as close to normal high school days as possible. On those days, another support system for them is going to be that they'll have an opportunity to meet their Grove teacher and peer leaders. So we already at that point have our Grove teachers set. We already have our peer leaders set to which Groves they're going to be looking after. And so this is an opportunity for them to get to meet all of these new people, but these really important people in their lives over the next year. So all of these things are fundamental in building that sense of safety and easing that burden around this big change. I think that's probably enough for me, and it gives you a bit of an insight into what the next few transition events will be and how that's going to help our young people. Now I'm going to hand over to Kirsty Faulkner, who's going to talk to you about what are some of the programs and systems that we have in place that further create safety and help students to manage issues when they arise.
How's that? Okay. Yes, so I'm going to be continuing on that conversation around safety. As Christy sort of mentioned, what I'd really like to focus on are those like proactive approaches and those fundamentals and foundations that we have put in place here at Golden Grove High School, particularly within Year 7 as well, to create that environment. So, as was mentioned, our middle school building and curriculum structures are really built by design to support our young learners. So, as Christy mentioned, our transition program, our week 1 orientation program, and our program ID, so that's like our pastoral care program here. They are all very intentional, and they're all sort of intentional in design to create that harmony in our cohort. So also, I just wanted to highlight some of our school values. So our school values are respect, integrity, pride, equality, and resilience. And I wanted to mention them because they are what guide us in everything that we do. So I'll talk a bit more about that later. So I'm just going to talk about our mobile phone policy. So we revamped our mobile phone policy in 2023, and we introduced that policy, which had a really, really huge impact. It's really quite rare to see, phones in classes or out in the yard whatsoever. This really allows our students to focus purely on their learning, also their relationships, and not have that distraction. During our week 1 program, when our Year 7s come into Golden Grove for their first official week, we do have a focus on cyber safety. We know that at times social media and our devices can sometimes create situations that are not always safe for our young people. These issues sort of generally happen outside of school. They're very hard to control, and they often find their way back into school. So what we do is we actively support our young people with all of these challenges as much as we can. But what we are actually asking and encouraging is that our families work with us, in partnership with us, by reinforcing these safe practices online at home. One really amazing resource is called the eSafety website, the Commissioner website. This provides an amazing tool for families about online bullying, and you are actually able to report bullying online direct to that website as well. And it's a really good idea to essentially get onto this nice and early and get on the front foot of this as well. So next, I'm just going to touch on sort of a couple of other whole school strategies that we use here at Golden Grove High School. So at Golden Grove, we are trained in something called positive behaviour for learning. This is an evidence-based approach to developing a whole school system which promotes the behaviours that we really want to see our students demonstrating. It's the things we want to see. This really creates safe, supportive learning environments. So PBL, we call positive behaviour for learning. It really shifts the focus from that punitive style, that disciplinary style, to teaching and reinforcing positive actions in line with those school values that I mentioned earlier. So we use those in everything we do. This is achieved through what we ask of our staff is to really have extremely clear expectations in their lessons, in their structures, their routines. We ask them to have really direct instruction and always using positive reinforcement to get those results of those positive behaviours that we want to see fluidly every day. Our middle school building and structures really facilitate what I've just spoken about. This is, as Kirsty mentioned earlier, having those regular teachers, regular class locations where students feel they have those, like, have us as trusted adults around them at all times. And then that also allows them to report any issues that they might be experiencing, like bullying or whatever it might be. A common concern from parents, some feedback that we received is, I guess, a question around what the impact of the older students coming up as year sevens come up into high school, what the impact of older students might be like. So we had a bit of a chat about that. In reality, we felt that the older students rarely do mix with our younger year 7 cohort. The issues generally are very uncommon between across the year levels, mostly within year levels. So it's very uncommon to have those contact points with the older students. So obviously at times there are some moments through maybe social media or maybe through older siblings or something like that. But generally speaking, there's not that sort of older and younger mixing too often. So sometimes, as we know, things from time to time may go wrong. There may be some conflict or some disputes that we need to support our young people with. When that does happen, we use something called restorative practices, as Christy mentioned, and this is about repairing, as I said, conflict or harm that may have been caused. So again, this is another evidence-based approach. It's a whole school approach. All of our staff are trained in this. A lot of our students are starting to become trained in this, and our peer leaders are also trained in this. So restorative practices, it really is about having lots of conversations. It's about having lots of informal conversations to address conflict over and over. It could be also quite a formal conversation, which is generally more led by a leader or staff member away from the classroom. So what these conversations sort of involve, they're really about understanding one another, creating empathy, taking accountability maybe for an action, and then it's about finding a way to really move forward or repair that harm that has been caused. So the research in education really tells us that suspensions alone don't always allow for real change to occur. And so we use restorative practices in line with that to try and encourage our students to use this fluidly day by day. As I said, our staff are trained in this, so there are lots of incidental moments of restorative practices happening in the classroom. Our leaders, as I said, are trained in this, and our peer leaders are trained in this. So they support our beginning year sevens with these conversations really early on. At times, as I mentioned, we as leaders will run formal conversations. This might be peer-to-peer. This may be peer and teacher, or it might be even a classroom discussion. And as I mentioned, there are times where I guess a consequence is still important, but these normally go hand in hand so that the empathy can really be felt in those moments. There are opportunities, there definitely has been in the past. So any opportunity that comes up, there are workshops for parents regarding restorative practices. So when those opportunities pop up, I do highly recommend those throughout the year. So yeah, I guess just to summarize, the things that we feel really strongly about in terms of our proactive approach to bullying and safety and things like that. It's really about the structures that we have in place, those touch points that we have in place throughout the year to build a safe environment for our students. We ask our staff, as I said, to provide predictable classrooms, and, whether it be transition camps and our assemblies and things like that, we always make sure that they're really purposeful and grounded in our school values. So yeah, that's kind of, I guess, a large summary of some of those concepts that we use. So if you certainly have any questions about these, please feel free to ask. And as I said, as we go along throughout the year, a lot of these concepts start to come through different workshops and platforms and our school website and things like that. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks, Kirsty. We've got some Q&A time, but I guess I also want to just kind of reiterate and give you a bit of a preview of what we'll be talking about in our next workshop. We've covered some common ground across the 3 different presenters tonight. And I guess what we're trying to do is just reassure you by giving you enough information so that you feel confident about this. But the more contact, I guess, and the more opportunities that will come up, you'll feel confident, and that will kind of trickle down, we hope. I also kind of want to wrap up by talking about how you can support your young person in this process, because I think as parents sometimes we're a little bit kind of unsure about what is it that I can actually do. I think sometimes we also think that as our young people are heading off to high school, they're going to be more independent. They might not want you to stand with them at the front of the school on transition day or on their first day, or they might just want you to drop them off at the front gates. But what I would say to you, and what I know from having watched so many families over the last 7 years navigate this process, is that this is not the time, and tonight is a good example of you not doing this, but it is not the time to back off, but the time to lean in. There are so many big changes happening. There are going to be friendship changes. Their teachers are changing. The schoolwork and expectations are changing. The environment, the physical environment, their access to technology. This is the first time often that we have young people having their own device, because we as parents want them to have the safety of being able to contact us on their way home on the bus, or if they're walking to and from school. We want to be able to have that connection with them at that end point and the start point of the day, which is fine. But sometimes it's the first time they've got a device in their hand. How they dress is changing, how they talk is changing, and what they want to spend their time doing often changes. So there are so many things in their world that are shifting, and so many firsts, that they need you. And they might think or say otherwise, but they're wrong. So what we think, the message that we want to keep saying to our parents, and we will keep saying this, is stay close and that they need you. And in our workshops coming, we're going to be covering some different ground. So Kirsty is going to talk a little bit more. There'll be an opportunity to sign up to these workshops too, so you won't have to hear everybody talk. You'll just be able to sign up to the ones you're interested in. Kirsty Uhealy is going to be talking about the subjects and the curriculum, and what global perspectives actually is and what it entails, and giving a little bit of a preview of what the work might be, and giving you some more insight into that. You'll have an opportunity to speak with Paul Gibbs, who is our assistant principal of learning support and students with disability. It's great, and go to that space. You might have seen the Learning Centre space in a tour. You'll have an opportunity to meet some of our wellbeing experts. So our mental health practitioner, Steph Stone, is going to be doing a presentation about what you can do as a parent to really start to prepare your young people for this transition. What are some hot tips that we think would really support you? And she'll be co-presenting with a wellbeing leader, one of our wellbeing leaders, Billy Nowak or Mark Wallace. We hope to have a little bit more about positive behaviour for learning and restorative practices from Sarah West, our assistant principal, who looks after that that's part of her portfolio and looks after those two big structures and programs that are involved in our site. So there's some different things coming up. And then, of course, we've got our big Year 7 or Year 6 parent caregiver information night. That information is going to be a whole lot more general. We'll be having an opportunity to talk about laptops, all of those kinds of nitty-gritty things, a little bit about hearing from kids about their own experience. It's an opportunity to meet the principal, hear him talk, have a snag from our governing council. Our governing council always come and put a barbecue on. So each of these little touch points are going to be a little bit different with a little bit of different information. But as we said, our advice is to lean in at this point and stay close over the next, year or so as they embark on this journey. So we've got time for questions. So if you've got some big questions that you're still wondering about or some things you might be concerned about, please put them in the chat now and we'll sit here and wait to answer them. Or if you want to raise your hand, if you're brave enough to just ask out loud, you can do that too. But yeah, this is the time that you've got to ask any questions of us. Good question. There's a question in the chat around, is there a specific email address for transition to high school questions? That is my email address, I would say, but it kind of depends. So you guys would have had some correspondence from Joanne Metty. She's our enrollment officer. So Joanne does all the things around forms and documents and all of those kinds of things. And I'm more you've got a real specific question about Golden Grove that you are wondering about. So the other question that we've got is around set dates for the rest of the workshops. We have a tentative date, but we haven't locked all our presenters in. But we are thinking, and I don't know if this helps parents because you guys don't necessarily think in weeks, but we do. So the first workshop is going to be, this is the plan at the moment, is on the Thursday around this time of week 2 of term 4. Which I think is it's like an October date. Kirsty, maybe the others know exactly the date. But as I said, we've only had our first meeting about that this week, so we're not really sure. And you would have seen maybe you've seen your transition guide, our Year 6 parent caregiver information night is on the Tuesday of week 6. Which I think is November sometime. I'm going to say it's the 11th of November, but that's just a guess. You'll have to have a look at some of the information that Joanne has attached onto the enrollments portal, or maybe you can also access that transition guide on our website. And I'm happy to put a link to the transition guide here. Yeah, so there's lots of information that, I can hear our cleaners. Anyway, all the information that around transition and the transition days and all of that information is in our transition guide. Have some people seen that? I'm not sure. Maybe they have or haven't. Yeah, some people are saying yes, some people are saying no. If you haven't seen that, again, it's on our website. So when you go to the Golden Grove website, there's a little button there says enroll with us. And in that section, there is a PDF document, and it's a 33-page document. It has everything you need to know about laptops, transition dates. It has a date checklist of all the dates coming up, when things are due, when things are coming out, times, everything is in that guide about all of the upcoming events. So the two focus special interest or special focus programs that we have are Touch and AFL. The trials for that are starting this term. So if you're part of our big feeders, so Golden Grove, Grinworth, Winvale, Keithcott Farm, when the kids come to visit us for their transition visit this term, so when they come with their school, they'll do some of their trials for the AFL programs and for Touch. And then there'll be another trial that they'll be invited to. So if they get past that first trial, there's a second trial, and that's a separate day where they come out to our school for a longer period of time. And then you'll know whether your young person has been allocated a spot in that program, because they'll receive a letter, or you'll receive confirmation of that in an email. Just trying to read through some of the questions, Kirsty, maybe you can answer some while I'm kind of trying to take a look.
I can see one on there. Are you worried about AI taking over learning? AI is obviously a concern. We are tackling this as a school, as a state, as a country. In terms of taking over learning, no. Do we have to adapt and change our learning? Yes. And we are looking at a lot of different pedagogies that we can use that in some ways allows students to use AI to enhance their learning. So, for example, we're exploring different ways that both students and teachers alike can use AI to modify work to suit different needs within the classroom. We know that in some of our classrooms, we might have 25 students who are all at different levels. So we're actually embracing AI in order to be able to enhance our teaching and learning programs. But we are also taking it very seriously in terms of doing some very explicit teaching on when's the right time to use it, when isn't the right time to use it, when can you use it appropriately, what are the appropriate platforms to use. So we understand that that's probably a huge concern for you guys at home, but I want to assure you that we have our policies in place, and we are having really open and constructive conversations with our students all the time about the best ways that we can embrace this without letting it take over.
I think there's some really easy questions that I can also answer in the chat. Thanks to one of the parents who put, Jamie, thanks to Jamie who put the transition guide, the link to the guide in the chat. It's really helpful. All of the information about laptops is on there. You just need to purchase the laptop before the end of the year. That's the advice that we give. And you should receive it then in time for the start of the year. There are lots of payment plans and lots of different things. You can, at our school, we have BYOD, so you can go and buy a laptop from, say, Harvey Norman or Dick Smith's or one of those big retailers or Good Guys, and they can utilize that device as well. So you don't have to buy from the program, but there are some really great benefits to that, which we talk about in our Year 7 or in our Year 6 parent information evening. Uniforms can be tried on. So we source our uniforms through Devon Clothing. You can go to Devon and actually try things on there, so you don't have to buy everything online. The transition guide has this information in it, but the website, it has a link in the transition guide to look up a little bit more information about the elective subjects. So when you go to the transition guide, there's a section around subject selection, and there you'll find a link to our curriculum handbook, and it takes you straight to the Year 7 part, and you can scroll down or click through and just read the little blurb about what's involved in each one of those subjects. In terms of the transitions, if you're not from a big feeder, we don't go to them, but they come to us. So the experience that our feeder primary schools, if you're coming from a non-feeder primary school in one of those smaller primary schools, they'll have the same opportunities. So when the later on in the year, when we have our small school or single school transition, half-day transition visit, whatever we've covered with our big feeders when we've gone to visit them or when they've come to us, we do it all in that day. So everybody has an opportunity to engage in that. And it's often really great opportunity for young people who are coming in smaller groups or on their own to meet other kids and make connections, and then they get to see them again on transition day. So it's a really great opportunity if you're coming from that situation, or your young person's coming from that situation.
I can probably, there was a question about mobile phones. So certainly certainly catching the bus home, plans, talking to parents after school, we completely get that. We actually supply something called a Yonder pouch, and it locks. So each student, it has one at the start of the year. So your year seven student will have one of those to basically pop their phone in at the start of the school day and lock it. And then at the end of the day, there is a station where the students can go and unlock them so they can use them to communicate outside of hours.
Oh, there's a different date for subject selection. Actually, when we set the dates for web preferences to come out, so there's a process around choosing subjects where you log on to an online system and you have your own individual code as a family, and then you choose the subjects. We put it in a booklet at a particular time, but we're going to do it heaps earlier. Because we put it in there, I think probably too late for us to use the information. Because one of the things we ask you to do as part of that subject selection process is for kids to put down 3 preferences, or 3 other friends, or at least one other person that they think that they would like to be in a Grove class with. And then I spend my holidays making those Grove classes. So, and it takes into consideration what their teachers have said and what special entry programs they might be involved in, whether they need literacy and numeracy support. It's a really complex web that I have to untangle over the October holidays. And so we actually we're going to be sending out the web preferences information a whole lot earlier than we put in the transition guide, because we need that information before the holiday break. So you'll get that information too. I think that's probably it. That's the end of our meeting tonight. Thank you all for logging on. It's going to be so wonderful to meet you all in the next couple of weeks, in the next couple of months, and we're really looking forward, especially to meeting your children and looking after them through this process. And if you have any more questions or anything else, my email is available in that transition guide, and we're really looking forward to supporting you all. And thank you so much.